Well, hello. My name is Corey Ruttercup. I'm the CEO here at the Greater Langley Chamber of Commerce. We're the business association for Langley City and Township, and thank you for watching one of our candidate interview videos ahead of the 2025 federal election, which is coming up on April 28th. The chamber has invited every candidate in the three Langley ridings to do these one-on-ones, talk about their perspectives, introduce themselves to our community, and talk about what they'd want to be prioritizing if they have a chance to represent us in Ottawa. These videos will be posted unedited to our website at langleychamber.com, our YouTube channel, and then circulated through the chamber communication channels in the lead up to final election day. Today, I'm joined by Alex Joehl, who's running in the riding of Langley Township, Fraser Heights, with the Libertarian Party. Alex, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Corey. Always a pleasure to be a part of the chamber. You guys have invited me on in the past, in past campaigns, and I always appreciate the chance to share the message.
I appreciate you being here. So why don't we dive into that? And then do you want to introduce yourself and kind of your background, what your party stands for, and kind of what motivated you to put yourself forward for this campaign?
Yeah, my name's Alex Joehl. I am a resident of Murrayville, live here with my wife and son, and I have been a candidate in four other federal elections. A little odd tidbit, I've actually never run within the same district boundaries before. They've been redrawn and I've moved, but running in Langley Township, Fraser Heights for the Libertarian Party of Canada. Libertarians always give the elevator speech, the elevator pitch that we think you know how to live your life better than the government does, and that's kind of the basis of where we come from philosophically on a lot of issues. And I am pretty passionate about libertarianism, as a philosophy, but then also as a political party. It's I've been a member of the party now. First ran for MP in 2008. And since then, I've joined the provincial Libertarian Party, where I've been the leader since 2023. And yeah, just having a chance to be a candidate on the ballot is important to me, because I know that there are some people out there who just really don't feel like there is a person they can relate to on the ballot, that they're the candidate that is right for them. And perhaps just maybe me being an option is going to get a few more people to get off the couch and go vote on election day.
Great. Well, appreciate you putting yourself forward. Elections only work with people on the ballot, so thank you for doing that and for joining us today. I want to dive into a couple of issues we want to talk about today, and I think a couple are when we look at our members top of mind and on their concerns. And I probably don't need to tell you this. I'm sure you're hearing it on the campaign around just the cost of living, cost of doing business, cost of getting by, whatever we want to call it, both for families and for businesses trying to keep their doors open. What is your perspective, and what's the libertarian approach to how what government can or ought to do to help address the cost of living and just helping Langley Township, Fraser Heights families get ahead?
Yeah, definitely the best thing that government can do is step out of the way. You hear a lot about what the government ought to do. We ought not to have people struggling to pay their bills, but every single public policy that comes through, every single project, every social works program, it all starts with taxation. And those dollars are taken from Canadians. And doesn't matter if you believe in the benevolent ruler in Ottawa. I mean, the fact is that those dollars come out of people's pockets. So affordability right off the bat is hurt by people paying upwards of a third or half their paychecks towards Ottawa. And then and and then the next point is what is the government doing that's hurting people's purchasing power? So of course, inflation was a very big topic there over the last 5 years, especially after the COVID shutdowns. We saw a lot of effect with the supply management side, or the supply chain side, and then after that, with all the bailouts, we saw a huge influx in the money supply. And when you have more money chasing fewer goods, you're going to see the prices of goods go up. And suddenly, the people that were hurt the most by this were lower income earners, people on fixed incomes. So the inflation is the beast that we have to get under control, and that is absolutely the government's role. The first thing they can do is just stop deficit spending, right? Deficit spending, spending beyond Ottawa's means. And then the Bank of Canada, of course, monetizes that debt. The Bank of Canada has a big role. Of course, they are, theoretically independent from the government, but it has a big influence. And definitely, I believe that it is up to the federal government to curtail some of the bad fiscal policy, fiscal and monetary policy that is right now the root of why people are just not able to get ahead.
Great. Well, thanks for your perspective on that. I'm going to pivot a little bit. Well, I'm going to do that a lot because we got a lot of things we want to cover in a short time here. But the other big issue that obviously has been top of mind and representing businesses for sure for a lot of our members, is the global trade instability and the challenges that we're seeing now coming from the states with tariffs and trade issues. What's your perspective on if you were elected to be a voice in Ottawa? What would you be advocating that Ottawa and the government do to not to address the Trump tariff challenges that's creating, but also on how we strengthen domestic competitiveness and internal trade and make our economy a bit more resilient to these types of shocks?
Right. Definitely a libertarian approach here is not to have any sort of retaliatory tariffs. You think about what happens in times of war and you put an embargo on your enemy. I mean, that's what you do to your enemy. So why would we do that to, our trading partners? Why would we do that to ourselves? So definitely the first thing we would want to do is not make matters worse by putting further tax on our own residents, our own citizens, and another aspect is we would really like to see interprovincial trade become totally free. Right now, there are just far too many barriers. We would definitely, work with the premiers to get legislation pushed through. I know that there's been a lot of talk about this. Our current member of parliament, Van Pop, it was one of his pet projects when he was first elected. He wanted to really, dig into taking down those barriers to provincial trade, and yet still we have so much further to go. So that's one way. And then furthermore, it's like, yeah, we definitely want to get to the bottom of what does our trading partner really want out of this. Trump's President Trump's been on again, off again, with the pauses and the threats. And I think really we just want to know what his goal outcome is, because we want our businesses to be able to have, proper forecasting, right? They have to know whether they're, trying to predict if they're going to need to upsize or downsize, if they're going to need to buy more inventory for next year, or scale back or totally pivot their entire business model. And so predictability is the most important thing. So I think that if there is any message for what the government should be doing in this case, it's put no further barriers on trade that's in our control, and then on the other side is sit down and negotiate with our trade partner, United States, and just get some sort of predictable outcomes.
Okay, I appreciate your perspective on that. One of another top issue that seems to have been an issue for years and years in especially in this part of the world is housing affordability, and that obviously goes hand in hand with what we discussed with the cost of living. Um, Kind of alongside housing affordability is this issue of housing, and everyone's talking about how do we build more, and we know our population is growing here in Langley Township. It's one of the fastest growing communities in the province. What's the federal government's role, though? And I'm interested in your perspective on making sure that we kind of match population growth and housing with infrastructure. And what's the federal government's role in making sure that whether we're talking about roads or transit or hospital funding, that communities like Langley Township, Fraser Heights, that are growing so fast, can actually have the infrastructure to make the quality of life and the standard of living for those people who are moving to our community the same that we're used to.
Yeah, I mean, the federal government has a big role in some of the added costs to housing. That there are a lot of programs, whether they be energy codes that currently are, housing is expected to reach. A lot of the issue are provincial. So where we want to work on this from the federal perspective is we want to kind of break down all the red tape. I know it's a pretty blasé term at this point. Every politician wants to cut red tape. But all we want to do is make sure that the federal government is not getting in between somebody who wants to buy a home and somebody who wants to build a home. We want to get that get out of the way. As far as infrastructure goes, that's a little bit big, more of a high level conversation, but where the federal government could definitely help. There's a lot of crown land that is it could be utilized better. Selling that off definitely would create the funding that would allow us to increase our highway systems. We could definitely work with our cities, create better road systems. And there's no right or wrong answer here. Again, this is mainly a provincial issue, but it's just a matter of getting out of the way and utilizing the assets that the federal government does have. Like I said, selling off or just land swaps with the provinces to better utilize it.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. One of the things that does, where there is a mixture of jurisdictions, but certainly the federal government has a role to play, is when we look at public safety and crime. We know that's when we survey our members, that is a concern. And it's what we're dealing with is and concerned about isn't so much the gang violence issue. It's that grinding retail theft, street disorder, property crime that people, whether they're families who have their garage broken into or a business that shows up in the morning and the window's been smashed, that kind of those type of issues. What's what is your perspective and what would you raise in Ottawa around how we deal with the kind of prolific repeat offenders, enforcement, but also the broader social issues that seem to contribute to another issue that we've talked about for years and years and can't seem to get our hands around?
Yeah, so definitely a touchy subject because we want to be sympathetic to people that are struggling with substance abuse. And often they are some of the people who are part of the theft. But also, what we want to do is we want to empower the businesses to better take care of themselves. Obviously, calling the police, after the fact, it's not stopping the theft on its own. But we would definitely bring in some sort of castle doctrine. We would allow private security to have more authority to apprehend people that are caught in the act using appropriate force, more so than a lot of businesses are comfortable doing right now within the current framework of the law. We understand that the businesses just want to have predictable outcomes, and if you're afraid that your customers are at risk, their safety's at risk, whether that's vagabond behavior in front of businesses, or if it's vandalism, or if, like you said, if it's just petty theft, where it shrink off your bottom line. We just want to make sure that our businesses feel confident that the law will back up any act that they have to protect their property.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. We've galloped through our time here, so what I wanted to do is give you a minute or so. Is there any closing remarks for voters in Langley Township, Fraser Heights that are watching this, and any kind of final comments on any other issues or things that are top of mind for you and the Libertarian Party as we kind of head towards, I guess, the final week here of the campaign?
Yeah, yeah. Only a week left for me to get my message out. Basically, libertarianism. It's anti-interventionist. We really want to emphasize. We want to decrease Canada's role. All over the world and in foreign matters. We don't want to be spending our hard-earned tax dollars on conflicts all over the world. So definitely, we want to put an end to that. One of one of the biggest issues that I was really trying to drum up is we need to fix the money system. I touched on it earlier, but it's not just inflation. getting to the root of fractional reserve lending, the banks creating credit that is further watering down people's purchasing power. We really want to make sure that our money is safe, that people are incentivized to save for the future with super low interest rates. People are incentivized to spend and go into further into debt. And while you might like that if you're trying to, if you're able to buy a house for the first time because of low interest rates, the reality is those rates also are leading to the red hot housing markets. And so I just really want to drive home that that is the number one area where we can definitely move the needle. Libertarians in Ottawa definitely not happening this time around. I think we only have 16 candidates, and we've never had anyone elected. But I always appreciate these campaigns because they get a chance to to get our message out that less government is better.
All right, well, we'll leave it there, Alex. I appreciate the chance to have a conversation with you. Thanks for taking the time, and all the best on the campaign trail.
Thanks, Corey. Appreciate it.